Hello everybody, I've been doing a session on this custom stock for Air Arms S510 and just thought I'd share with you a little bit of what I'm doing and a couple of thoughts that are in my head while I'm doing it. So these undercurves, anything that's an external curve, or I guess a convex curve, you know, anything that's I can get on the belt sander, it's so much easier. Concave curves like this, boy, I don't know, that's tough to get some kind of horsepower onto that. Oh, was I holding it too high? I was looking at it myself. So anyway, I traced the shape into a piece of 2x and 3M77 glue some 80 grit to it, and it's been a while shaping like this, and it's become very smooth now, except that there's a little spot here that's really not quite finished, and to take this whole curve down past that point so it's got a perfect intersection with this curve, that was seeming like a lot of work. So I ended up just rounding this off a little bit and making a little bit of a transition. I think it actually looks quite nice. It may be better than having it just be an intersection of two completely different shapes. Have a little bit of a transition looking at the factory original stock, and I do have a lot of respect for the designers for the Air Arms stocks, but this shape, it goes from concave to convex. It doesn't really have any flat spot. It's always in transition, almost an OG curve. I guess maybe it is. So I did that for a while, although I'm not sure if this is color. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if this is color or figure or a spot that's not sanded through yet, but I can't detect anything at all. One trick to try to figure out whether it's color or not is to sand over the area, and the sanding dust will collect in the valley if it is a valley, and it doesn't appear to be. I think that is just color of the wood. It can be hard to tell sometimes. So then I turned my attention to this curve. Get this tilted right here. This curve in this valley. So again, I don't know what kind of power tool you could put on that to make that fair. I mean, I can do the rough shaping with the burr. This is Sabre carbide tooth. It's a medium cutter, and you know that does a lot for defining the shape after what I get out of the duplicating machine. But now at this point, there's hills and valleys in there, though it's not fair. So what I'm doing is I'm using a rolled up piece of machine belt sandpaper. You know, it came in a loop. I cut it open and curl it up in a curve. Somewhat. And then give it more of a curve like that to get it up in there. And now my focus is on high speed, light pressure. High speed, light feed. The idea is to glide over the hills. Too much pressure and too slow, you know, if it's slow and too much pressure both, it would be the worst case. Then you're probably going to be falling into the valleys and climbing up the hills, and falling into the valleys and climbing up the hills, and we want to like skip over the top of the hills. So that's what I was doing just before I turned on the camera, and I don't know why I thought you all would want to see this, because it seems like an hour or two of mind-numbing labor. Yeah, that's a pretty good hump right there. Sometimes a new line will start to appear. And then, so for example, this is kind of curving this way, but as I worked this spot, I was sensing that I could easily make it curve backwards, turn it into something like that, and that could be cool. But whether it's cool or not, you don't want to let that happen inadvertently and then have to live with it. You want to foresee possible line changes and work to develop those that you want or want to maintain if they're already there, or alter. You know, you may decide you want it sweeping back. Well, then start putting your attention on making that happen. Sometimes though, It's just going to take whatever shape you were doing makes. And then you can just say, I meant it. Because in a sense you did. Maybe it was just subconscious. Sometimes the shape just has to become the materials, you know, the tools and the techniques that you're using. It's going to define what that shape or line is. Yep, this is smoothing out. Pretty good hills and valleys still though. I can feel the, oh, so this is something else I do when I'm working, is stop every bit and feel it. And look at it, but feel it also, because the sensation of the touch builds an image in your head that is more than just what the eyes can provide. I think there's a lot of aspects of observation that are like that. They require multiple modes of data input, if you will, sensorial input. If you rely on only one, sometimes you build a mental image that's not accurate. Maybe all the time. That is really coming along quite quickly. I like very aggressive 80 grit. You know, make short work of it. Yes, it's going to take a while to sand down through the 80 grit scratches, but do you want to spend a week at 120 to get it done, or half an hour plus maybe another half an hour to sand out the scratches? Am I getting in the way here? I tend to put the whole body into motion. Let me move over here. It's a dance. Oh yeah. And see, the other thing we're getting, because of my high speed, we're getting a very smooth curve along the edge of this feature. This line here is really smoothing out into a smooth arc, because I'm doing a kind of a high speed, light feed. I see there's an area here that's rough, so as I'm working this and working that, I'm giving a little extra time up in here. Oh wow. Still a little hilly, but it's a big difference for such little amount of time. It was huge. I guarantee you, if you haven't worked hard, whoops, it's okay, this is a little scratch. This whole thing's 80 grit. No big deal. I guarantee if you have not worked hardwood like this by hand before, and you carve something rough like I do, and you see these huge imperfections, it would appear daunting. But the wood does literally melt in pretty short order with 80 grit. I mean, really aggressive machine belt 80 grit, not garnet paper. Machine sanding belt. It's tough stuff. I got to zoom in 7 minutes, and I don't mean like zoom off, I mean Zoom meeting. My Mason Club, as in Freemasonry. It's something I want to devote some time on this channel to. I've got a lot of material related to Freemasonry that I'd like to share. I've been in all the clubs, I know all the secret handshakes. And actually that's not true, because there's so many of them I can't remember them all. Modes of recognition. You can get those elsewhere on YouTube. I won't be talking about that, but there is a whole lot to talk about Freemasonry. It may have its roots all the way back to the Egyptian days. There's a stela, I guess you call it, a column, a pointed column in Central Park. There's one of a pair. One went to London, one went to Central Park. The one in Central Park is called Cleopatra's Needle. It's so ridiculous. We take these things up out of Egypt or wherever and we relocate them around the world. It's like it's a world's treasure. It ought to stay where it was, be researched and studied in the future by people with more knowledge than we have. But now what do? We dig them up, we relocate them. After the next global cataclysm, if people find it, they'll think the Egyptians were in New York. Who knows, maybe they were. But anyway, at the bottom of this thing is the traditional Freemasonic emblems. Uh-oh, I got it. Of course, now we're told that the first Grand Lodge started in London, England in 1717. I think it was London. It was England. And a bar called the Goose and Crown. And then it was a group of guys getting together once a month to speculate on what the real stonemasons were doing in their secret meetings. Like, wait a minute, right there on this outer teaching explanation of the starting of Freemasonry, there's a mystery. The real stonemasons had secret meetings? Like, what were they talking about indeed? How to move megalithic giant stone blocks? How to cut them by some advanced, now forgotten technology? How to melt them, or slump them, or mix it as powder like concrete? All of which I've just mentioned we see evidence of in megalithic stone structures. So anyway, Freemasons are called speculative Masons because of this origination, at least this outer teaching. It could just be a story, who knows, but that it started by guys getting together, speculating on what the real stonemasons were doing in their meetings. I'm sure it was largely fueled on ale. And I don't believe that that really was all of it. Okay, that might have been the first codified Grand Lodge. Yes, I'll buy that. But it wasn't when Freemasonry was born. They just finally codified it, brought all the different Masonic lodges that were already existing under a roof. So how long were they existing? Oh, this is all the hills. I would say they're all gone. There's a little area here. There's a little area right here. This still needs to be worked right here. Oh, it's very close. And I'm really close to my zoom. Just another minute here. The next thing I'm going to show you guys, I really hope, is cutting a length of pole. I got to do a session with it. It's just a little bit long as it is, so I want to cut it off a little bit. And I know my favorite length of pull. I have it written down, but every time I do a new gun stock for myself, I agonize over: do I still like that dimension? Do I like it for the clothes that I'm going to be wearing on the mission that this is for? Should it be shorter? Should it be longer? Mainly I'm thinking shorter, but I'm just going to probably cut a little bit off and play with it, because I can go as much as a ½ inch too much, because the recoil pad going on there is going to be a ½ inch. So I have room to play, and I know the shooting position I want it to fit. So I've just been kind of putting it off because it seems like it's a pain in the butt. A lot of work. I guess it's a hobby, right? Oh, see how quick that just took that down? Nice. Very difficult to detect any unfairness. It's very close. Oh yeah, this is really nice. Alright, I gotta go jump on my Zoom, people. I'll be talking to you soon. Michael out.